Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 484 of the Juicebox Podcast. I want to try that again. I don't like how, affected my voice was. Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 484 of the Juicebox Podcast. On today's show, Bella. Bella was diagnosed as a small child. She's more of an adult now, and she wanted to share with you what it was like growing up with type 1 diabetes. She's going to tell you how seriously she took it and how seriously she takes it now. So there's a difference between then and now. You're about to find out. Please remember while you're listening that nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Always consult a physician before making any changes to your healthcare plan or becoming bold with insulin. If you're looking for those diabetes pro tip episodes, the defining diabetes episodes, what else? How we eat, after dark, there's a lot to choose from. You can go to Juicebox. Wow, I just bit my lip or something. You can go to juiceboxpodcast.com. You can also go to diabetesprotip.com for the pro tips and the defining stuff. And now this has gotten confusing. This show is sponsored today by the glucagon that my daughter carries, Gvoke HypoPen. Find out more at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. The episode is also sponsored by the Contour Next One blood glucose meter. It is simply the easiest, brightest, and most accurate blood glucose meter I've ever used. That's it. That's the sell, man. contournext.com/juicebox. If you find something that's more important than bright light, easy to read, easy to use, second chance test strips, and fits nicely in your pocket, your purse, or your bag, what do you need? We need flashing lights or colors, or actually I think it has that too. Let me think of something even more ridiculous. What do you need? Bells and whistles? You don't need bells and whistles. You need accuracy, ease, etc., etc. Oh, by the way, and reasonably priced too. Go check it out.
So hi, my name is Bella. I am 23 years old, and I live in Indiana in the US, of course, and I have been a type 1 diabetic going on 14 years now. So this December, it'll be 14 years. So I was diagnosed when I was 9 years old. I was in the 4th grade. I wanted to come on the podcast originally. I remember I sent you an email, and it was during the peak of quarantine, and I was listening to your podcast on a walk, I think, and I was just I think I'm going to email him, because I finally had the balls to just be let's thank him for the podcast, and then throw in there, if you ever want me to be on it. But I originally wanted to come on, I think, just to give my perspective on growing up without taking care of your diabetes. I was very uncontrolled. And now I am really controlled. I'm very proud of how far I've came, and it's great. And I feel really healthy.
Excellent.
And I think it's really good. And that was originally why I wanted to come on. But it's been a couple months now. So I was thinking about it yesterday. I was well, what would I even say? So I was kind of just whatever we talk about, we talk about.
I already have questions. So a couple of things. First of all, you said, okay, I'm from Indiana in the United States, of course. So I'm not certain if you meant, obviously, I'm from the United States, or obviously you all know that Indiana's in the United States. And now that I'm saying it, I'm not sure why I said it. Tell me that first.
Obviously, U.S., after Indiana is, of course, in the U.S. Sorry. Not of course I'm from the U.S., because your podcast reaches pretty far and wide, doesn't it?
It does. It was just, it was, I don't know what it was, the balance of the words that came out. I was is she apologizing for having told people that it's in the U.S.? I'm not 100% sure.
Oh, no, I'm not apologizing. Sometimes we should probably collectively apologize, but no.
So, and in 4th grade, I endured the entirety of, I think, the worst teacher I had in the whole time I was in
school.
How was your 4th grade experience?
Oh my gosh. So I had the best teacher. She was so sweet, so nice. She was like straight out of college. And I remember she was so kind to me. And she was just so sweet and I loved her so much. But fourth grade, getting diagnosed, that on the other hand was really hard for me. I remember so my diagnosis was pretty weird. Well, it's not weird. I'm sure it's fairly common, but at the time it felt weird. So was I was peeing the bed for like a couple nights in a row, and my mom was like, obviously, like something's wrong. You're in fourth grade. Like you shouldn't be peeing the bed. And it was like, I don't know, like 2 or 3 nights in a row. So she made me a doctor's appointment. I went to the doctor, all that good stuff happened, which I could go into detail on if you're curious.
Well,
but
I want to know, I wanted if there was good stuff and details, tell me a little bit about it.
I remember going to the doctor. It was like halfway through the school day. So I left school early, and I don't really remember that much from the time period. Like I feel like I've subconsciously blocked out a lot of my childhood diabetic years. Really? But I do remember, I have like very vivid flashes of memory from that day. Mm-hmm. So I went to the doctor, like the local pediatrician office in the town nearby, and they I think I like peed in a cup, and then I think they tested my blood sugar, and it was like crazy high in the 500s. And I just remember the doctor, she was a female, and I just remember her being like, okay, I think like you have diabetes, you're gonna have to go home, pack your bags, and go to the hospital. And I just remember crying because my mom was upset, but I had no clue what that meant. So I wasn't able to really like fathom why I was upset or what was going on. And I remember like the sweater I was wearing this like green and purple sweater with little balls on it. Very like early 2000s. It was adorable. And I remember being like, I'm so hungry. Can I eat something? And then the doctor was just like, you can go, like, you should get some chicken nuggets. That should be okay. So I went to Wendy's, got some chicken nuggets, which probably wasn't great for my blood sugar because they're breaded, but whatever.
We're also not 100% sure they're chicken, but I digress.
Yeah, probably not. But they were Wendy's, and Wendy's, as far as chicken nuggets go, I feel like I don't eat meat at the moment, but I remember them being pretty good. So yeah, and then I went home, and I remember my sister was there with my grandma, and they were upset. And I feel like I was just like, why is everyone upset? Like, what does this mean? And I went to the hospital, and I was there for like 5 days.
I have to tell you, Bella, I grew up so broke, I would imagine everybody was crying because of how much a mattress cost.
Oh my gosh,
yeah.
Like, oh, and I had no clue about the reality of pricing and medical systems. No. And obviously, I mean, I was 9.
I just meant because you peed on the bed so many times, I'm figuring you needed a new mattress.
I assume I did. I mean,
you better hope.
You would hope so. Man, now I'm trying to think about it, and I have no clue.
Was your whole childhood just like, what is that?
No, well, I had to have gotten a new mattress. There's
all right, we'll check on that with your
mom,
and we'll put it at the end of the episode. I expect an email a couple days from now that says I've talked to my mom and the mattress was not or was replaced.
I will definitely ask her. I'll ask her after I get off with you because I'm really curious now.
Fourth grade's interesting, I think, because obviously you have like real memories from the time. So old enough to retain memories from it, young enough to not know the details. You know what I mean? But that's, I think that makes sense. I think if you were a few years younger, it would make sense. I have to tell you, I was joking earlier, but my fourth grade teacher made me hate math so much. Really? I'm going to admit to something. Do you mind if I admit to something now?
No, of course not.
So we were learning multiplication in fourth grade. And I know that in a modern society, people are like, yeah, I learned multiplication when I was like, 6, but it was the 70s and they were taking us slow. So every Friday we'd show up and he'd give us 100 quick multiplication things like, 4 times 6 and 2 times 3. And you had, I'm going to forget, but I think it was 5 minutes to do 100 of them. Now, the indication as I'm saying them is that these, should be to you that these multiplication tables were just the ones that everyone knows, like 3 times 6. Everyone listening just thought 18, except I was a little behind, and every one you got wrong, he sent you home on Friday. You had to write out each one you got wrong 10 times.
What the heck?
So I'd freeze up and panic and start thinking about how it was going to lead to a weekend of writing multiplication tables, my dad yelling at me, my mom seeming disappointed, my parents who were not great, like parents. They were good. I don't know how to put it. They weren't good at fixing problems, I guess. And so I just would get to that test in the morning. I'd freeze up. There were times I'd get 70 of them wrong spend every waking hour of the weekend writing out these multiplication tables. Well, he turned me off to it so much that I'm going to tell you now, and people listening, I think, imagine I'm a reasonably bright person, right? I did not know how to do those basic multiplication tables for 2.5 more years until I failed a math class in 6th grade. 6th grade, I was in algebra and I couldn't do it. I failed it. I had to go to summer school. And that summer, sitting in my grandmother's house where I had to live so that I could be closer to the summer school, I thought to myself, this is ridiculous. And I sat at a table and taught myself all of those multiplication tables in like 2 hours.
That's amazing, though. The end of the story, that's amazing. But honestly, I feel like that's really traumatizing.
Oh, it's terrible.
So I completely understand that.
I mean, I'm 48. You guys hear, I might be 48 or 49. I'm having trouble this year knowing how old I am. But
that's funny.
Happened to me a few years ago, too. But I'm absolutely still, like, obviously you hear me joke about it. Like, I'm worried that I'm not good at math because of that. And it's not. It just was, I think it was that exact time. Like, I ran into the wrong guy at the wrong time was my point.
Yeah, I do get that. I definitely understand that.
So what happened to you that how was your management in those early years? Because you want to talk about having not done well for yourself for a long time. So how did it begin?
Yeah, so I remember, and I was actually telling my mom this morning, I was like, because I live with my mom right now, because COVID's really making things great in the real world. But I told my mom that I was coming on this podcast, and she was like, well, make sure you tell him that you were sent to the hospital for a couple days, and they just had different doctors in and out every day, and none of them were specialists, none of them were endocrinologists, they were just like their pediatric team. And none of them taught us how, they didn't teach us anything. I remember sticking things with syringes. And I remember the first bit of being diagnosed. We would call the doctor. I would be home and they would have us call the doctor to get information on how to give myself injections, how to correctly give the correct amount. And I just remember one of the doctors was so mean, and I remember he was yelling at my mom, or in my memory, he was yelling at my mom, who knows? I could have fabricated that memory in my mind, but he was mean and they were not really helping us. But I think that in the early years, probably the first 2 years, I was really resistant. I remember I didn't want to have shots. My mom said she would have to hold me down sometimes just to inject me. And I think those first couple years, I didn't really do anything then. I was 9 years old. But I think that my dad wasn't really around much. So he was never really involved in my diabetes care. But I think my mom was completely overwhelmed and she didn't
she wasn't doing well, and then she got yelled at on top of that. This is literally my story about multiplication. Go ahead. I'm listening.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. And I don't think she didn't have the resources to learn how to take care of me or to teach me to take care of myself. And that's something that I've really had to come to terms with recently. Since I started taking care of myself, it's something that I've really had to work on not letting myself resent her for, because it's really easy for me to look back and be like, man, for all those years, I was slowly killing myself and you didn't know any better to help me not do that. But like I said, she didn't know any better. So I think in those first couple years, were just doing what we could with the resources we had. And I think that's why it's so great to sometimes listen to your podcast and hear all these parents who take care of their kids so well. And it just gives me so much joy. But until I really listened to your podcast, I didn't really think that my situation was abnormal. Like, I didn't think that,
You just thought this
I didn't
was
really think
diabetes.
anything about how my mom didn't really know what she was doing. And it was kind of just like flying by the seat of, I don't know that saying, but
it's fly by the seat of your pants. How old are you again?
Yes, I'm 23.
There's an episode that went up yesterday with Julia, who's, a little older than you. And I needed her to say like a test sentence. And I said, hey, say, I forget what it was, like Susie sells seashells by the seashore, or the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plain. And she's like, what? I'm like, the rain in Spain falls mainly on the plains. And she's like, what is that?
Yeah, no, I know the Susie selling seashells by the seashore. That's a hard one, though.
Nice try, Bella.
Yeah. Man.
Well, listen, I think that your story is why I am really proud of the podcast.
Yeah, I would be too. And that's why, I don't want to be like, oh, your podcast saved me, because it didn't. I mean, I saved myself. I learned everything on my own technically, but your podcast has been just so helpful. And I know that I'm not the only one out there who learned how to pre-bolus and just learned all these helpful tools. And yeah, it's something to be really proud of for you. I hope that you're so proud of it.
Well, I am, but not as proud as I am of this. Fly by the seat of your pants is parlance from the early days of aviation. Aircraft initially had few navigational aids, and flying was accomplished by means of the pilot's judgment. The term emerged in the 30s and was first widely used in reports of Douglas Corrigan's flight from the U.S. to Ireland in 1938. I guess he was flying by the seat of his pants.
Okay.
All right.
Huh.
There we go.
The more you know.
Oh, yeah. I wish we could have license for that music.
That'd be
right.
Cool.
I'd be like right now. Anyway, do you even know what see? There's an interesting thing. Do you even know where the more you know comes from?
No, I don't. Where does it come from?
I love this. It was it was a thing on NBC. NBC is a television. I wonder how far you have to go with people your age. Like NBC is like funny. Netflix, but you don't pay for it.
I know what NBC is.
Okay. They used to have these public service announcements.
Okay.
And on the whole NBC thing in the United States, and they'd put out these educational messages, and at the end of it, there'd be this little music. Hold on, let me see if I can play it. Could you hear that?
No.
All right. Well, I'll put it in when I'm making the podcast. But it was this kind of star flying through space, and it had the words "the more you know," and it played this little piano music behind it. That's
wow, this has been so I'm really learning. I appreciate
you're not learning
the
anything.
Culturing.
This is please, if this is culture, you're in trouble, Bella. But I'm just saying that it's super interesting that you use phrases
that you don't know, or that I don't know.
Well, all of us, that you're using them properly, but you don't know where they came from or why they exist. Oh,
that's really interesting. I've never thought about that, but that's a really good point. And I probably use so many that I honestly have no clue what the heck they actually what, where they're from.
Well, you have to wonder too, right? How many people managing their diabetes are doing things because they heard it or heard enough of it to know that it's a rule in this one situation, but don't know why, don't have the background information around it.
Yeah. And probably so many. I mean, so many. I mean, I didn't even fully understand until probably a year ago how fat and protein affect the blood sugar, and I still sometimes struggle with really high fat meals. But that's besides the point.
No, they're not. It's not really. Bella, what I'm telling you is that my silly little stories and diabetes all are basically the same thing. It's you just said the more you know, you understood what that was. And you did enough, but not completely. So your mom's at home. She's got the needles. She's got the insulin. She understands a bit of it, but not enough. Like she gets the like when and maybe the why, but not the how. And she has no context for what she's doing. And she's trying to make her way through this incredibly difficult thing. Meanwhile, you're running around the house like being like, "You're not putting that needle in me."
Yeah.
and it sounds like, and not that I'm digging, but your dad might have been a spy or something, because you said he wasn't around very much. So she's doing it by herself. And that's a lot of stuff for a person. How old was she at that time? Do you know?
So she had me when she was 40. So she was an older, she gave birth older. So she was probably like 49, almost 50.
Oh yeah. She was done with you already and her hip hurt.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it was, I think that also it's been really easy for me to focus myself in that story of like, this was so hard on me. Like, this is my life. Like, how could you not have known better? But, like we've had some brief conversations about it here and there. And I know that she's not really good at talking about her feelings. I mean, I'm not that great at talking about my feelings either. Vulnerability was not something that I saw modeled in the household as a kid, which is something that I really strive to be better at and more vulnerable with. But so the small conversations that we have had about it, I can tell that it was hard on her. But I don't think she fully knows how to talk about it and like unleash those emotions with me. So I can't really say much of how she like was actually thinking and what was actually going through her mind.
Think that's cultural for your mom?
Yeah.
Is she,
what?
Is that cultural for your mom? Is she Irish? I guess is what I'm asking.
I have no clue what it is.
Okay.
And I have tried to think about it. I don't know what it is. Neither of my parents really modeled vulnerability. I assume that neither of their parents did either, like the generational trauma that just goes down and down. But
how do you do with it? Because it sounds like you're aware of it. Or do you break through? Or do you
I'm trying so hard. Yes, I am aware of it. I really want to be better at the things that my parents missed out on or could have improved on. And I know that if I ever have kids, I'll have my own, own stuff that is going to be messed up, and then they'll probably want to be better than me at that stuff. But yeah, with emotions and vulnerability, that's something that I really have been trying to work on. And I think that also it comes back to diabetes so largely for me, because I remember that I was so overwhelmed when I was younger. Because I was like, once I was in like 6th grade, I was practically managing everything on my own. Like my mom would take me to doctor's appointments and she would call insurance and she would go get my prescriptions and pay for everything. But I was the person who was giving the shots. I was testing my blood sugar and I just wasn't doing it. Like, and I wasn't doing a good job.
Well, that's what I was wondering.
Trying.
I'm sorry. Were you not doing it willfully? Were you not doing it well because you didn't know how? And did you just give up at some point?
Yeah, I didn't know how. And then, so I feel like diabetes is like, I don't know. I feel like it's like you're told that you have to write a book in a different language, but you don't know this language and you're given a dictionary in the other language. It's like, you're not like, unless you have this information, you're not able to do it. And I didn't have the information. My mom didn't have the information. And so I was just doing what I thought was normal, which was really not doing anything. And I remember I would like go to the nurse to check my blood sugar every day at lunch, and it would be in like the 200s. And I would be so ashamed because I didn't think that it should be that, but I didn't know how to, like, I didn't know why it was that high, or I didn't really know how to get it normal or what tools to use to get it normal.
Yeah.
And
well,
yeah,
the evolution is, well, first I'm going to go back for a second. Do you see, you were describing, things that your parents didn't have that their parents probably didn't give them, and how you're trying to break free of that. Do you see why human evolution takes so long?
Yeah. Truly. No, I understand that.
And I understand
it's just a lot.
Well, yeah, because you're also living at the same time. Like if I took you and, I set you out in a nice field and put you in a small cabin and gave you all the things you needed to eat and said, Bella, hey, here's all your human failings and shortcomings, work on them right now, you'd still struggle with it. But when you got to go to school and get a job and have personal relationships, you're building a life, again, with incomplete tools, just like you were trying to manage your diabetes with incomplete tools. It's not.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah. Well, it's the obvious nature of figuring out something complicated.
Yes. And complicated it is.
I'm sorry, you broke up for a second. You said
I just said complicated it is. Yeah. Like, it's definitely complicated.
Everything's complicated. But so you can break it down as far as you want and say, the doctors didn't give you good tools, but the doctors are also people who were raised by people, and they're working through their stuff as they go to their job, which happens to be the most important thing in your world at the moment. You've just been diagnosed with diabetes. You're counting on the doctor that came in. That doctor could be fighting with his spouse, could have been raised by terrible people. Like, you have no idea, like, what leads somebody into their profession. Maybe they're there in that room struggling with your demons. Maybe your mom got on the phone with the doctor and your mom reminded the doctor of his mother who was helpless in her relationship with her husband, and he wishes subconsciously that she would have stood up to her. Like, who knows why he was mad at your mom? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. So at some point we all have to take control and responsibility and say to ourselves, I don't read the words in this dictionary. I can't understand what they are, but I have to write this book, and then forget everything that anyone's told you in the past and approach it from a common sense nature, which I think is what I tried to do here. And it sounds like you did it on your own at some point. So how long did you struggle, and when did you start figuring it out? Gvoke HypoPen has no visible needle and is the first pre-mixed auto-injector of glucagon for very low blood sugar in adults and kids with diabetes, ages 2 and above. Not only is Gvoke HypoPen simple to administer, but it's simple to learn more about. All you have to do is go to gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. Gvoke shouldn't be used in patients with insulinoma or pheochromocytoma. Visit gvokeglucagon.com/risk. That's like my favorite part, so I probably shouldn't have talked over it. The Contour Next One blood glucose meter, like I said earlier, is simply great. It is accurate, easy to use, easy to hold, easy to handle. It has second chance test strips, which means you can hit the blood, not get enough, go back and get more without messing up your test accuracy. And it's got big numbers on it, right? I mean, what else do you need? Like the light at night is strong and bright. Deep in the heart. Never mind. It's got a bright light for at night. I can't believe I rhymed that twice. I didn't mean to. Now my brain's in a loop. Listen, you need a great meter. It's one of those things you don't think about. We all just take the meter the doctor gives us. They yank it out of a drawer. They're like, here, meter. You're like, oh, free. Great. Something's easy. Except, is it accurate? Is it easy? Really? Or is it just the one they had? Meters are not that expensive. At least the Contour Next One isn't. So check it out. It's an amazing website with all the answers that you need. They have a test strip program if you are eligible. Some people are even eligible for a free meter. Listen, I've said free and great and accurate a lot. It's worth clicking on it. You know what I mean? contournext.com/juicebox. You deserve a great meter. It's not. Meters shouldn't be throwaway items. They shouldn't be. What's that word when you just like, you don't think of something? Oh God, look at me. This is ruining the flow of this. You know what I mean? Like an afterthought. Afterthought is what I meant. Meters shouldn't be an afterthought. It should be a choice you make. And get something good. I mean, if you're getting something, right? Like, what are you going to do? If you have an ice cream cone on the table and an ice cream cone on the ground, and the one on the ground has rocks in it, and there's an ant crawling on it, and some bird crap on the cone, but then there's one on the table, and it's clean, do you go, I'll just take the first one someone hands me? No, put in the tiniest bit of effort. Get a good ice cream cone. That's not a really deep metaphor, so you understand what I'm saying. Like, put in a tiny bit of effort, make sure you have a great meter, contournext.com/juicebox. Links in the show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to Bella.
I struggled until, I still struggle, of course, we have our days, but I struggled all the time, I think, until I was about 20. So it hasn't been that long. And I would have some good periods where my blood sugar would be fairly stable in those periods, but like my A1Cs, well, first of all, I think this is important to tell you. I didn't know what an A1C meant until I was like 20 years old. So that's like, like 11 years of diabetes without knowing what an A1C was.
So
I just have a hard time fathoming that at this point.
You'd get that A1C and you'd be like, and they would tell you there's a number you're shooting for, basically. You'd be under it or over it, meaning, I guess they'd be like, oh, you missed, or you're doing great. And then that was it. No one ever told you what the A1C was or what it did, and you didn't take any steps to figure out what it was. By the way, I'm not coming down on you. I think this is incredibly common. So
I think it is too.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to feel like it's not common because like we hear the podcast and, we see all these people on Instagram who seem like they have everything figured out. But I think the reality of diabetes is that I'm a more common story than, well, now I have not everything together, but now I'm pretty well controlled and I'm really proud. But I think that my past is actually way more common than people like me with A1Cs that are good now, because even now I'll go to my doctor and she's like, you are doing perfect. And in my head, I'm like, are you serious? Like, I'm not doing perfect at all. But to her, when she sees people all day that, the A1Cs are in the 8s, 9s, 10s, whatever they are, when she gets me coming in and my A1C is in the 5s, and it's been in the 5s for over a year. So I'm really proud of that.
Good for you.
Yeah, but when she sees that, I bet she's like, holy crap, this girl, like, she's got it. Like, I don't need to do anything.
I know that's how they treat us.
That is, yeah.
Yeah. And there are times I'm standing there, I'm like, no, you have no idea. There are things I don't get about this. And I don't even bother asking them because I think that their norm is keeping people in the 8s. And I think they turn into cheerleaders for people. Like,
I think so,
too. It's, you said that everyone on Instagram looks like they have it figured out. I would say that, remove diabetes from that sentiment for a moment and remember that Instagram is all about making you look like you have everything right.
Yeah.
It's,
oh yeah.
Right.
It's definitely,
it just is. It is that. It's pictures. And by the way, I don't come down on those. I know it's a systemic problem at this point that everyone is showing their best moment. And therefore the people who are looking in feel like, oh, everybody's doing better than me. But at the same time, if you start a social media platform with photos, did you expect people were going to put up like ratty looking pictures of themselves?
Yeah, that's true. Like, it's not like I wake up and my hair is in a, a frizzy mess and
you're like, let me share this with my friends.
Yeah, no, that's a really great point.
Right.
But also with Instagram, like, I don't know how I was like 20, like I said. So I don't know how, but I started following someone that did yoga and they were also a diabetic, and I don't know how I found them, but I remember seeing like that this person can take care of themselves because they would share about their diabetes sometimes. And I remember seeing that and seeing that they could do all these things and have normal blood sugar. And that really motivated me. That was kind of like not a wake up call, but I was seeing it modeled for really the first time that it is possible to control yourself. And so that was actually a huge push for me to get my shit together and to learn and to start trying.
Yeah.
So even though Instagram is something that can be so negative and just not always great, in that context, it was very, I don't know, it was helpful. And it's weird to think back and think that Instagram was helpful in that way, but it's pretty cool at the same time that it was.
Oh, I 100% believe it. I also think it's interesting that you think of it as negative because the people you're following and the things they're sharing aren't negative. It's people's responses that are negative.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's how we use it that makes it negative.
Yeah, yeah. And meanwhile, you can even understand those people's responses. Like, imagine this. Imagine you, instead of living for 10 years with diabetes and not doing great with it, you were 30 years into it. And now you're at home and your health is as, poor as 30 years worth of really bad management leads you to. And then you open up Instagram because, you're like, oh, maybe I can find some community here or some and the first thing it is somebody who comes along and they're just like, look at me. I do yoga. I'm perfect. My body's toned. I can bend my leg back behind my head and my A1C is, 5.1. A lot of people do not have the emotional maturity. Some of them blood sugars might be swinging all over the place as well. So they could be in their head kind of all over the place. And you would understand if their response was, you know what I mean? Like I'm dying over here, literally and figuratively. And you want to lash out at somebody. I don't even know if that's negative or if it's just a reasonable response. Some people have better responses. There's a person who will stick in my head forever who was on Facebook, I don't know where, on some group, begging for help for people with her diabetes. And she was an adult who had had type 1 for, I think, like 30 years, a bunch of kids. And she had come to this realization that she was going to die sooner than she wanted to, and that her children were going to be alone. And so she's asking people for help. And some of them came in and said, you should ask this guy, Scott, and tagged me in it. So I had her call me on the phone, and I gave her basically the hour primer on the way I think about blood sugars. And a couple of days later, no lie, 2 days later, she sent me this graph, and she had never been over 125 or 120, and she wasn't under 70 for a whole day.
Wow.
Super excited, asked if she could call back, calls me back. She's crying. And I think these are gratitude tears. And then I realized, no, that's not what this is. She was angry. Super angry, by the way, that for 30 years, no one could get across to her what only really took an hour to understand.
Oh, I completely understand that.
Right?
I completely get that.
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing to come to terms with. And that's something that I personally have had another hard time accepting. I have had periods where I'm just so angry at myself for how horribly I was controlling myself or I guess not controlling my blood sugars.
But Bella, you know that that's unreasonable, right?
Oh, yes, of course.
Okay.
I know that that's something. And I feel like I said, it's a process. So it's something that I've worked on.
Good.
But yeah, I used to have those periods where I was just angry about, well, holy crap, look at how I treated myself. And I think that also what that comes back to with me is fear for the future, which is also unreasonable. So I know that as well. I know these things are unreasonable, but still they persist.
They're hard to shake.
Because I think with diabetes, we hear all day long, well, not all day long, but it's constantly being spouted in the media and in all these things that diabetes, kills you, complications, yada, yada. And so I think something that I've had to have a hard time with is trying to accept that how I treated myself in the past doesn't necessarily equate to how my future health will be.
Well, do you think you, who you are right now, the person Bella is today, would have done that to herself then? If you could go back in time and relive your life with your thoughts and knowledge that you have now, you wouldn't have done that to you would have done things differently.
Of course not.
Right.
Yeah.
But you didn't know the things you know now.
Exactly.
Right.
And that's why it's something that is accepted. I can't be angry you can't be angry about the past. You didn't know any better. Everyone's just doing the best that they can with what they have available. And that's what I was doing at the time. So
a lot of wisdom, Bella.
No, thanks.
Seriously.
I try.
I'm really impressed because usually your generation goes one way or the other. It's really interesting. It's either very much like, hey, did you see this thing on Twitter? Or like these very deep thoughts. I'm hoping more people have deeper thoughts as things
I
move
hope so
forward.
too. I do agree with that though. It's funny because I'll connect with people my age and sometimes I'm just like, I don't care what you're talking about. This is silly. But then also like, I don't think I'm one of those people who has very deep thoughts. Like I have some friends that they're just so intelligent and they'll say stuff and I'm just like, man, I wish that I had an ounce of your ability to formulate words in such an intelligent manner.
Don't you think
But
that the desire for that is what leads to it? Honestly, like, don't you think 10 years from now, you'll listen back to this and you'll think, wow, I didn't know what I was talking about back then, but now I really do.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I hope so. Like I hope that in 10 years from now, I listen to this and I'm like, this girl is a girl. Like I'm still a child, but also I feel like 10 years from now, I'm still going to feel like a kid because I feel like something that I've thought about a lot lately is how we're all just kind of big children, just trying to do the best that we can. Like even a 70-year-old, you're essentially a child in an adult's body.
It's funny you said that because yesterday afternoon, I said to my wife, I'm going to go to Costco to pick up like bulk, like paper towels and toilet paper, like these kind of things that we need, like in, a bunch of it. And I was just going to go in and grab a few things and leave. I think I got a case of water and paper towels and stuff. And I'm all the way in the back of the store and I'm walking to the front and I'm on a side aisle. This is really wide aisle and there's no one in it. And I just took a few fast steps and then jumped up on the back of the cart and rode the cart all the way down the aisle.
Oh, that's so fun.
It was just, I didn't, when I got done, I did think like, I wonder what somebody would have like thought, like, is the security guy right now going, look at this old guy riding the cart up the thing and what he would have thought. And I wish I would be able to tell him in that moment if he had that thought. I feel like I'm 12 in my head.
Yes, exactly. I completely understand that.
That's all. Well, listen, I think, first of all, you're doing terrific. And you're having a ton of realizations that are building your life up and your health. I can't see where you'd be doing any better unless you're not breaking laws in your free time or anything like that, are you?
Nope, I am not breaking laws that I know of.
I know of.
Yeah.
You feel like you could wake up one day and go, oh my God, I had no idea that was against the law.
Oh man, that would be something. But no, I'm doing well.
Good.
And diabetes is something that I've come to really welcome in my life. I used to be very not ashamed of it, I would say, but I think I was so angry that I had diabetes, but I was trying to pretend like it was all okay because I didn't know how to ask for help. Mm-hmm. And now I try to really just accept that diabetes is with me and live with it and embrace it. And yeah, I still have days where I'm like, screw you, you're making me mad. But for the most part, I've tried to use it as something to really grow from because it's not going anywhere. So
you don't think it's just going to get bored of you and go somewhere else?
That would be great. If it wanted to leave, it could. I would love for it to go. But also, I thought about this recently. I have lived more of my life with diabetes than without it. And I can't imagine not having it. Like, I can't imagine what a normal brain thinks of who doesn't have diabetes at this point.
Here's a question for you. You and I are in a room together. No one's ever going to know. I bring in a complete stranger, your age, a girl your age, and I say, Bella, I have a magic wand here. I can give her your diabetes. Would you let me do it?
I don't think so. Well, it depends. If this person I knew would be capable of managing, but then I don't know. No, I don't know if I think someone deserves to.
Bella, the struggle in your voice is the answer.
Yeah.
There's no real answer. It's not, hey, you, me, and your mom are on a boat and it's sinking and one of us has to get thrown off or the boat's going to sink and kill all of us. Which one should go? Which I'm assuming you'd throw me off, but maybe you wouldn't.
Oh man. Also unfair question.
Right. They're all unfair questions. But again, the reason that they're fun to ask is because your struggle in answering was the answer, which is I can do this. I don't need to give it to somebody else and burden them. But oh my God, would I love this to go away? And I don't know them. So if I suddenly make that girl a friend of yours or your cousin, your answer becomes what?
No, of course not. And I've thought about that. I've thought about, well, like, what if my sister would have been diagnosed or someone else? And I think that, I mean, given the circumstances, you never know because I'm the one with it. But I think that I can handle it, and I've had the strength to handle it, and I've used it to really help me. But you don't know how someone's gonna react to that, and you don't know how they're gonna come out of it. And for all you know, they could be like me. They could be a lot better than me and have it figured out, or essentially, fake figured out from day one. Or they could be like me in the beginning and never get it figured out and just, slowly kill themselves every day, which is not the way to live. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone,
Bella, do you know that you just made me feel very emotional with your answer? I thought that was incredibly insightful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, seriously, that was wonderful. You're throwing together quite a little good episode of this podcast. I don't know if you realize it yet or not. I'm able to judge them on the fly because I've done so many. This is very good.
Thanks. Yeah. That sounds so nice to hear. I was honestly thinking about it, and I was like, man, I wonder if this is going to be a bad one.
Wait, are there bad ones?
Well, no, but I meant like if you were going to listen to this and be like, oof, I don't know if I want to put this out there.
Do people have that expectation that there are episodes that have been recorded that nobody hears because I think they're bad?
I don't think so. I would assume that you put them all out there because I feel like that'd be a really awkward conversation if someone emailed you and they were like, hey, like just checking in. Are you going to put that, like, when are you putting the episode out? And you're just like, oh, well, actually.
I learned my lesson a while ago because there were two that I was 100% sure were terrible. And I kept pushing off using them. And then I got stuck one day. I was like, oh, I need an episode. And I put it out, and then the response I get back is so overwhelmingly positive that I think, okay, this episode might not have been right for me or right for someone, but it was right for enough people that I got emails about it. And even the other day we put one up. By the way, when I do that, it freaks me out because I don't know who we is because I do this by myself. I'm like,
oh, that's so funny. Yeah. I understand that. I sometimes do that too. And I'm like, so we need this. And I'm like, wait,
who's we? Yeah. But so I put one up the other day. It was like this very long conversation with this guy. And I thought it was an important conversation. It was around insulin pricing and.
Oh, I just listened to that. I thought that was great. I really liked that.
Okay, great. I'm glad you did. I immediately woke up the next morning to to a message somewhere on the internet that was like, hey, Scott, listen, that's the worst episode you've ever done.
Are you serious?
Yeah. And you talked way too much. And I thought I did talk a lot, but I was really jacked up and like passionate about what we were talking about. And I also thought the entirety of the episode was different than most of them. It wasn't as back and forth. It was more like, hey, here's what I think about something for a few minutes. Here's what he thought about something for a few minutes. It wasn't as back and forth. I just thought it was kind of an episode unto itself. And so the message of I didn't like that was the first one I got of the day, which, by the way, to all of you listening, it's lovely to wake up in the morning, work so hard at something and hear somebody be like, that sucked. I'm like, okay.
Oh, man.
But I'm okay.
That's a day ruiner.
No, not anymore. I know how to, I wrote it. I was like, all right, it's his opinion. He didn't like it. And then I started wondering, I wonder if I'll hear back from anybody else. And then I started getting other messages from people. That was great. A guy on Instagram goes, best episode you've ever put out. And I was like, boy, that's the interesting thing right there, because this was neither the best or worst episode I've ever made. But for them, it was.
Yeah. And I understand that completely. And it's so interesting because you never know how someone's going to take it. So like you said, for someone that was absolutely horrible, which I don't get how that one was a bad episode. Because if anything, it was informative if someone didn't really understand what's going on with insulin pricing and the other things you guys talked about.
Give me a second.
It's so interesting.
You do know how, because we talked about it earlier, because I spoke a lot and he probably didn't feel like I was giving the other guy room to talk, which I feel like I did. He probably grew
Yeah,
up.
I guess I get that. I do get that.
He probably grew up with a parent who dominated the other one and didn't let the other one speak. Or he works for a guy who dominates people and doesn't let them speak.
That's true.
Or there's some sensitivity he had to that thing. And I don't begrudge him that. I think that's completely reasonable. You know what I mean? But also, in fairness, it wasn't like he was like, and I'm never listening again. He was just like, I love the podcast, but, I didn't think this was good.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But that does make sense. And instead of just, taking that situation and, asking himself why it bothered him, he decided to tell you that it bothered him.
And I also don't want to, well, this is a 2-step statement. I don't want to hear everyone's thoughts because that would overwhelm me, but I do like getting feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, you know what I mean? It was helpful because when I got done and I was finished with the edit, I was like, yeah, I did talk a lot here, but I felt like that the content overwhelmed the pacing. So I was just like, I'm going to let it go out just like this.
Yeah. And I also
like
think, in that situation specifically, like that was a long episode. And I think it also could have been even longer because I think with a subject like that, both of you guys probably could have talked and talked and talked.
Yeah. No, I think Cameron, so here's the other thing. Cameron's amazing, but he's also, and this was the first time I had ever spoken to him, but he struck me as a little reserved. Mm-hmm. And so when people are a little more reserved, they have a hard time projecting. They want someone to, I don't know. Like, I don't know what I mean right there. Like, there's one of these things where I have a sense about something while I'm recording the podcast that I can't put into words. But some people start out nervous and they need to be, relaxed, and then they find their groove. Some people will fumble for words forever and can't find them, but they know what they're saying. So you just have to give them time and let them go. And some people are just polite, and they don't. Polite people sometimes don't initiate.
I do get that, and you have to coax it out of them, kind of.
Yeah, or I have to get, in that case, I found myself getting real worked up. And then when I got worked up, Cameron said something. I was like, God, I agree with that guy. And then so it and so it would go back and forth. And I don't know, I felt like it went well. And I'm not apologizing for it. I thought it was a good episode.
Good. Yeah, you shouldn't apologize for what you put out. It's great. It's
the best I can do,
Unless you do actually have something worth apologizing for, then of course I would hope that you apologize.
I have so far, I think, avoided that.
Good.
I don't have a lot of thoughts that I believe that if you heard, I would have to apologize for. So
that's good.
That's why they're not slipping out, because I'm not holding. It's not like I'm talking right now and I'm about to say something horrible, but I'm stopping myself.
I would hope so. That would not be ideal.
Well, you'd be upset. You'd be like, "Oh, that podcast I like. That guy's actually."
Yeah, I know exactly. I would leave this conversation and be like, "Man, I don't think that. Oh, that really didn't live up to my expectations."
Can you imagine if, like, after the recording, I shut it off and I was like, "So, I don't know," then pick some, like, some group of people, and I was like, "How bad are they, huh?" And you'd be like, man. "Wait, what? No, you can't have my episode."
Exactly.
People. Well, what do you like today? How do you manage your blood sugars today? Like you said, your A1C is in the 5s?
Yeah, my A1C's been in the 5s for over a year now. I just got it done a couple weeks ago, and it was 5.4, which I wasn't frustrated, but I was a little frustrated because it was 5.1 previously. So I was like, man, it went up. But honestly, I should not be sweating a 0.3 increase. That's ridiculous.
I'm going to tell you that I'm not a doctor, but 5.1, 5.4, I think you're okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But so right now I'm on Medtronic, and I'm currently switching over. I just got my Dexcom a couple days ago, but I'm not using it yet because I'm getting the T-Slim. Ooh. And I don't want to use the sensors until I have this T-Slim because I don't know, I just don't want to waste them. But I'm on Medtronic right now. I had the 670G, and so I first got on that 2018, and my mom wanted me to get it for auto mode because I was studying in New Zealand for a semester. So she was like, I think this will be helpful for you, yada yada. And so I got that. I used auto mode for the entirety. I was in New Zealand for like 6 months, and it sucks. And it was horrible. Like I would wake up and the sensor would tell me that I was like 130, and I'd check my blood sugar and I'd actually be like 170. And I'm like, sweet, because that's really going to do some good for my health in the long run.
I have to tell you, Bella, I imagine that Medtronic has like designated a person to listen to this podcast, and everyone comes on and says stuff like that. I always feel like bad a little bit.
Honestly, okay, I do appreciate Medtronic because they have a very good financial assistance program. So they really help me out with that. But man, their sensor just could use some work. And I'm also interested though. So when I start using the Dexcom, I really hope that I don't have things to say about it like I do with Medtronic. Because if that's the case, I'm just gonna throw up my arms and say, okay, I guess you can't win.
Here's what I can tell you about Dexcom. My daughter's A1C matches my expectations based on her readings.
Okay. That's good.
That's how I judge anything.
Yeah. And that's a really good point.
Yeah. So I get what I expect. And if it's telling me this and that's what's happening at the end, I mean, listen, can Arden's blood sugar be 110 when it's really 95? Or can it say it's 95 when it's really 110? I'm sure that happens.
Oh, yeah.
But in the end, Arden has a stable, steady A1C in the 5s for, I think we're coming up on 6 or 7 years. I've lost track.
That's so great.
Yeah. So it works well for us. And I don't doubt there are people whose body chemistry doesn't jive with it. Like, I'm sure those people exist as well, you know?
Yeah. But I'm excited to switch over. I just think it'll be good for a switch. I've been on a Medtronic pump since I was in 6th grade. So it's been a while. But I wasn't using a sensor until I was until 2016. So I went a long time without using a sensor.
Wow. Listen, that's how things go. You know, stuff gets better and people come online slowly. And you know, eventually everyone who can afford it, who wants it, will have it. I think as long as they know, as they know about it.
Having a sensor is just so important. Like if I really hope that, like, I can't imagine being on injections. I think that would be really overwhelming for me. But I also, if I had to choose between a pump or a sensor, I think I would have to choose a sensor because I can see what's going on. Like I don't want to test my blood sugars 20 times a day just so I can see what's going on.
Yeah. No, I listen, if you know, it's sort of a false choice because you don't have to choose between a CGM and a pump. But if you did, I'd have trouble disagreeing with that. I'd go Dexcom before I would have a pump.
Yeah.
I think it just it makes sense. Hey, earlier you said something that I wanted to remember and I didn't write it down, and now I'm sitting here thinking, like, what was it? I'm so sorry. Give me a second. I'll make that noise that makes people think of things. I think you said it already, but I want to make sure that I'm right.
Okay.
What was the value of the podcast for you?
Oh, okay. So this podcast has been great on two levels. Initially, it gave me the tools to, be bold with insulin, but to really give myself insulin in a smarter way, in a way that works with my body, in a way that works with my food. So it was immensely helpful for that. And I will always be grateful for that. Cool. But I think that it's also given me this weird sense of community that I don't really have. And everyone talks about how it's so important for diabetics to have community within with other diabetics. And in person, in real life, I don't really know many diabetics. But it's so comforting to listen to your show. And especially when it's people, my age, a little bit younger, into, people into their 30s too, like the younger generation. And it's nice to hear some of the parents talking about their kids, but I really connect with when it's people just talking about themselves and their own experiences with it. And it gives me a sense of community. And I think that's just so valuable. And I really appreciate that.
I'm glad. I 100% believe that community in any way that it manifests itself for you is very important. I also really appreciate that people listen to the show because it allows me to do something that I don't think most of you listening would imagine is difficult to accomplish. But Bella just said, I like to hear from kids a little younger than me, a little older than me, people my age. But I also like to listen to parents, but you hesitated on that a little bit. Like maybe that's not as good for you as it is hearing like people living with diabetes.
Yeah.
If you guys, if everyone didn't listen with the veracity that they do, I'd get penned in and I'd have to make a decision. Like this is just going to be a podcast for the parents of kids with diabetes. This is just going to be a podcast for adults living with diabetes because stuff like this dies quickly. And if I put 4 episodes out in a row that nobody is willing to listen to, I can't keep making the podcast.
Yeah. Well,
right?
That's actually really funny that you say, because I remember this summer I was talking to a coworker and I was like, yeah, like what kind of podcast do you listen to? And he was like, yada, yada. What do you like to listen to? And I was like, oh, I listen to this diabetes podcast on top of other podcasts, but I obviously mentioned this one. And he was like, well, doesn't that get old? Like, don't you run out of things to talk about? And I was just like, I felt offended. I was like, well, you know, when you have an illness that doesn't go away, you'd be surprised at how much there really is to talk about.
Yeah. Oh, I was, excuse me. I've said it on here a couple of times, but I spoke to somebody as I was doing this. And, so before podcasts existed, there was something called like Blog Talk Radio. And it was like the audio was bad. It was coming over a phone line. But it was interesting. And I talked to this guy who had a Blog Talk Radio show about diabetes. I have to clear my throat. Wow, I'm so sorry.
Okay.
And he was like, oh, I think you'd be great at this. I had been a guest on his show while I was selling my book. And he's like, oh, I think you'd be great at it. But his one piece of advice ended up being, I don't know. It didn't ring true in the end. He was like, you'll run out of things to talk about eventually. That's what happened to me. And so I began this journey thinking that it had a finite end. I think you can even hear it. I'll say it like in earlier episodes. Like, I don't know how long I can keep this going. And now I don't believe that at all. Now I believe exactly what you just said. I think I could make this podcast forever, and I think it would be just as popular, if not more popular than it is right now, because people
I think so.
always need to have conversations. And I hope that I make this more than just about diabetes. I feel like I do.
I think you do. Yeah, I definitely do. And I think that that's good too, because I'll listen to it and, you know, I get to hear about people's experiences that live. I mean, you get some people from all over the place that come on here and
cool.
who have different experiences and who do different things. And I definitely think you make it about more than diabetes, which is also great because living with diabetes, you can't let it be the all-consuming thing. Like you're so much more, like I'm so much more than just a person with diabetes. Like diabetes affects how I do everything. Yeah. But I mean, diabetes is just one thing that I am. So it can't be all that you talk about.
I think that I agree. And I appreciate you saying that. I just recorded the other day with a woman in Israel who was just diagnosed recently as an adult, a cellist, you know, who is a classically trained musician, you know, and you. And I think you all have equally valuable things to bring to the show.
Yeah. I think so.
You were really
And that's
great.
why I also think, I don't think it'll ever end because people are going to keep wanting to come on and talk to you.
I just have to make enough money that I can hire, I say this, like I was going to say an editor, but that's not true. Like, because then I don't know how to teach somebody my sensibility for how the podcast should sound. That. You know what I mean? But there are days there are days that I sit in this chair all day to bring the podcast to you guys, and it's like some days I'm like, oh my gosh, like I got other things. I should go for a walk. I keep thinking, you know how the podcast is going to end? I'm going to have a heart attack from not moving around.
Oh, that's funny.
So, is there anything that we didn't talk about that you wanted to?
I don't think so, but I don't think so, because the thing is, like, the people that listen to this podcast care. They care about either someone with diabetes or they care about their diabetes. And I think the only thing I would want to say is I do. If you're a parent to someone with diabetes, or you love someone with diabetes, I think that you should definitely encourage them to talk about how they feel about it. Ask them if they're okay, and don't just take, yeah, I'm fine for an answer, because I know personally with me, I would be asked if I was okay as a kid. And I would just be like, yeah, I'm fine. Like, it's not cancer. But in my head, I was like screaming, I'm not okay. So I think that's just what I want to put out there, definitely ask those with diabetes, especially the younger ones, how are you feeling? How can I help you?
I wonder how far that goes. Meaning, how far could your mom have pressed you before you would have told her how you felt? And maybe you might not have, right? Yeah, here's how I do it. I like hugging. I like to stop people in the middle of the day and just give them a hug and let it linger for a minute. You know what I mean? Like, I'll hug Arden or my son or my wife, and people are having, stressful days. And of course we all live in the same house. Now, right now in this house, there are 4 people doing 4 completely different things in 4 different rooms.
Yeah.
Because of COVID,
Because of COVID, yeah.
So everyone's a little like, I don't know, we're all vibrating a little bit, and I think somebody just a hug sometimes just kind of like settles it down a little bit. And I completely agree with what you said. And at the same time, I don't know. Like, I've pressed people who I know are struggling with things in my life, and they are not going to budge over it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I do get what you're saying. Like, as a kid, if I would have been asked and asked again and asked repeatedly, would I have said that I wasn't okay? Probably not. Like, it probably would have taken a lot of pushing. And
Bella, do you know what you never hear on this podcast? You never hear me bring on a quote unquote expert to answer questions about how we should do things, because I think those are just nice. They're nice concepts. You know what I mean? Like here's one. Never lie. We should all be kind to each other. Treat other people the way you want to be treated. These things are obvious, right? 100% obvious. But people don't do them. Why is that?
Yeah.
It's not because they don't know. They know do unto others, right? Like, everybody knows that phrase. You even know the more you know, even though you don't know why you know it. And so, but how many people actually spend their days just treating people the way they want to be treated?
Very few. Yeah. Well, not very few, but
less than you think.
Not everyone.
Yeah, right. It's fewer than you think. And I just think that it's a little disingenuous to say, this is how you should run your life. And look, I told them now, so they'll be okay. You have to have, everyone's got to have some sort of an awakening around everything, whether it's how you treat people or how you treat yourself or how you manage your insulin. You have to come to it on your own. I've had people come to me privately and they're like, I heard you help people sometimes. Can you give me a hand? I helped a woman last week. She was easy. She asked questions, got answers, took the answers, put them into practice. In 3 days, we were gone. She's amazing. I've also had people fight me every step of the way. And I'll try for a day or two. And then I'm like, look, you're not ready for this. And then I feel terrible because I've seen their graphs and I'm like, now I'm walking away from them. It feels like, but I'm not. They're not ready for it. I could stay with them forever. They weren't ready to listen. And one day they either will be or they won't be, and that's not under my control or anyone else's.
That's true.
That's what I've learned from this podcast so far. Plus how to use this like editing software. Some other stuff. But no, I think what's obvious and what you're ready to do, 2 completely different things.
No, that's really true. That is a great point.
I don't know. We'll see. So the best you can do, you've already said the answer, is model. Gandhi said it, right? What did Gandhi say? How did he say it? You said you wished your parents would model what? What did you talk about?
Vulnerability.
And you think if they would have, you may have picked that up, right? Right. And what did Gandhi say? Be the change you want to see in the world?
Yes. Be the change you wish to see or want to see, yes.
Yeah. So,
all I can do is be as I want to be,
and hope
which is modeling vulnerability.
Yeah. And hope people take that from you. Right?
Definitely.
And don't go overboard.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's it. Life's easy.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's super simple. Just seriously. It really is, by the way. Just, good intentions. Do the best you can. I honestly run my life on like a couple of basic ideas. I don't lie if I can help it. And I treat people the way I want to be treated as often as I can.
Yeah, and those are two very powerful things.
That's it.
Truly.
It's the best I can do. Because otherwise, I've got other things going on too. And sometimes my needs come before your needs. But every time I can put you before me, that's my intention. I don't always get it right. But we're human, so of course not. I'm just shooting for the best. That's all. I'll fall short most times, but at least I'm trying. I think that resonates.
Trying is the big thing.
Yeah, I think it resonates with people.
I think so.
Eventually they grow up and hopefully they'll do the same. I always use a little example is that when I leave the house, which I don't do as much anymore, or even when I leave a setting in the house to go do something else, I tell the people around me. And it's not like I'm asking permission or checking in. I'll just be like, hey, I'm going to go to the store. I expect to be back pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to go to the store, but I got to make a couple stops. I'll be a little longer. I'm going to go upstairs now and work. I don't know why. I think that lends comfort to people. The idea of like, I know where the people I love are. And I think that's kind of important. My son, he's 20. Every time he leaves the house, he's like, hey, I'm just heading out. He doesn't feel like he has to tell me. I've never once made him feel like he has to tell me. I've never once in my life said to my son, you have to tell me where you're going before you leave the house. But he always does. He just sort of makes his intentions clear as he's moving around. And I think he got that from me and he doesn't even realize it.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. That makes complete sense.
Yeah. So you can do that with other stuff.
Yes, you can.
That's all.
I love that. That's a good, I mean, I feel like that's something that I know already, but I don't think about. And that's very true.
Right.
You can't do that with other stuff.
Well, once you make a baby, Bella, and your intention is to not screw it up royally, you'll start having the thoughts more consciously.
Oh, man. Yeah. We'll see, though. We'll see if I got a while.
Yeah. Oh, please. Man, give me some good advice. Your mom waited till 40. That might have been too long. But,
I think so.
Early 30s, nothing wrong with that.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I'm not.
Are you thinking about babies?
I'm not Russian.
Is there a boy?
Oh, sorry. I didn't hear that. No, there's not.
Okay. All right, good.
But that would be great too. So, but one thing before the other, of course.
I don't even know how people in your generation are going to end up pregnant.
Oh, man. I don't know. Apparently, I mean, especially with everyone uses dating websites. I hate that. So.
Yeah. I mean, listen, as far as I know, you can't get pregnant through TikTok. So you guys are screwed.
Oh, no. Okay. So I think TikTok's a little earlier. Well, I think TikTok's earlier than my generation, but I do I have friends that use it, but I'm not on the TikTok.
Yeah. Because when some guy slides up in your DMs, he can't actually slide up to where the babies get made. You understand it doesn't work that way, right?
Yeah, I'm very well aware of that.
Good for you.
Yeah. Social media.
I'll tell you, if I could do one thing, if you put me in charge of something, you're like, just make some blanket decision that you think will help the world. I think I would take social media away.
Honestly, I think that would be so interesting because I think that we would be forced, especially my generation and younger, we'd be forced to do things in person and we'd be so much more personable and we wouldn't have so much phone anxiety. And I think that would be great. But then also, like we've talked about, social media has so many benefits.
Yep. You'd lose a lot of good stuff.
I think the costs sometimes outweigh those benefits. Sometimes.
The popularity of the podcast is because people have the ability to tell each other about it.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I wouldn't have found it if someone hadn't posted about it, most likely, because it's not like I was searching the internet for like diabetes podcasts.
Okay. All right. Obviously, I can't take social media away. It'll hurt the podcast. But I would say like, let's not spend so many, the scrolling and double tapping on Instagram is maddening to me. I'm always like, did you see the picture? What are you doing? Just giving out likes? It's weird.
Yeah. I agree.
You look at the photo.
It's an odd thing.
Yeah. I don't know. Y'all are, listen, and I got to tell you one thing you don't realize, it's going to go away. Yeah. There have been social media platforms in the past that have been incredibly popular and have run their
like
course.
MySpace was my jam as a kid. Well, not as a kid, but kind of as a kid.
No kidding.
No one uses MySpace anymore.
No, your little animated GIFs and your sparklies and stuff like that was exciting, I would imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, there'll be something else. There will be. All right, Bella, you are really great. I appreciate you coming on and doing this. I'm going to go now and eat some breakfast and prepare for recording at 1:00 with Dr. Paul Saladini.
Interesting.
I tell you right
Who's
now,
he?
I should figure out how to say his name before. Saladino.
Okay.
He is an MD who has a book about eating carnivore. And I think I'm going to use it to his recording to add to the how we eat ideas, because I've got a few recorded now and I want to add some more stuff. So.
I'm excited for those.
Good.
I think those will be interesting.
I have a good one that's plant-based that's recorded already. I have a keto one that's recorded already. This one will be, carnivore. He doesn't have type 1, but I'm making an exception here because he's a sort of an expert in the field. So I wanted to hear from him.
That makes sense.
Yeah, but I'm dying. I'm leaving this in your episode because if you have a specific way of eating that you can really talk about the highs and lows and the benefits of, please let me know, because I want more of that on the show.
Yeah, I mean I am a vegetarian, but I don't think my diet's that special.
Are you like a vegetarian, like you really eat vegetables, or are you a vegetarian like you're gonna have like a Pop-Tart now when you get done talking?
No, I go through phases, but I eat pretty good, generally speaking. Like I had an apple and a banana and some peanut butter for breakfast. But I read the Mastering Diabetes book, and I thought that was great.
Cool.
But
there's a but.
It's hard to cut out fat completely. So,
I think it's hard to do anything completely.
Yeah.
And I think that there are a lot of people who have there's a way to eat. There's a way to eat. It seems to me like it would be very difficult to keep that going forever. And maybe
I think so.
Maybe it wouldn't be for some people, but I made a decision today's Thursday. I made a decision last Friday that I was going to cut carbs out for a week just to kind of reset myself, because my body begins to hold retained water if I have too many carbs. I'm 7 pounds lighter today than I was last Friday.
What? Yeah. That's wild.
Right.
But carbs are so we need carbs.
I don't know if we need them or not, Bella, because I'm not like the knower of everything. But what I can tell you is, I want a piece of bread so badly.
Oh, I bet. I had garlic bread last night with my dinner, so I understand that.
I had a cheeseburger last night without a roll, and as I ate
horrible.
it, I was like, "This is like," I'm gonna bleep this out, but I was like, "This is like having." Right? No, I'm not gonna. The end.
Yeah, no, that's disgusting. It's so. Ugh.
I was just like, I'm just gonna do this, but I'm not. Nothing about it was enjoyable.
Yeah, I can't imagine eating a burger without a bun.
Yeah.
Well, mine would be a fake hamburger, which is also horrible for you, but I don't eat those all the time.
All right. Well, I'll get a vegetarian on at some point. I thought I had one and then I missed, but
well, if you ever need one, I could talk about it, but I don't know I don't know. I would have to think about what I actually know.
Yeah.
But I have been a vegetarian for 4 years, so I have some time.
Do you know I had someone come on and record a whole episode about being low carb and called me or sent me a message 4 days later and said, "Don't run that episode. I did not do justice to the idea of low carb eating." And
interesting.
So I am going to be very careful to make sure that I have people that really feel like they can articulate the position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't know what I would say. I'd have to think it over.
No more don't know what I'm going to say, Bella, if you want to be back on again. Okay?
Okay. Sounds good.
Okay, so I go enjoy your day, and thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. I really appreciate it.
Oh, I appreciate it. Take care.
Okay. Well, have a great day.
You too. A huge thank you to one of today's sponsors, Gvoke Glucagon. Find out more about Gvoke HypoPen at gvokeglucagon.com/juicebox. You spell that GVOKEGLUCAGON.com/juicebox. I'd also like to thank the Contour Next One blood glucose meter for sponsoring this episode. Learn more at contournext.com/juicebox. There are links to these and all the sponsors at juiceboxpodcast.com, or if you're listening in a podcast app, in the show notes of your app. They're right there. Thanks for listening. Thanks for subscribing where you're listening. Thanks for telling friends about the podcast. Thanks for leaving great reviews where you listen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. And that's pretty much it, right? Thank you, podcast, Bella. Yeah, I did everything I meant to do. I'll see you in the next one.